39 war heroes receive military honor today at the Yaoundé military headquarters. Soldiers who fought and died at the war front as they struggle to protect Cameroon's territorial integrity. We shall be revisiting the images and that scene today which took place at the military headquarters in Yaoundé. In less than 48 hours, the women will be honored in Cameroon, Africa, and well over. It will be the 30th edition. In this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast, we shall be having a woman who has dedicated her life to serving prisoners in Cameroon and Africa. Those are the top stories. I will be right back. The 6 p.m. weekenders edition of the primetime newscast on Equinox Television. Good evening and thanks for joining us. Tens of Cameroonian soldiers who have been honored with the medals of military valor for their bravery in the fight against Boko Haram in the far north region of the country. The bodies of soldiers were handed over to their respective families today. 39 in number. Roland Akon comes back to that ceremony and he tells us it was an emotional event.
The funeral march in honor of the 39 fallen soldiers ignited an atmosphere of emotions at the General Military Brigade headquarters in Yaoundé Friday. It is very touching to the soul as the 39 soldiers sacrificed their lives defending their national territory and its integrity. Emotions turn dramatic as some relatives of the fallen soldiers go unconscious, collapsing. At least a case is rushed to the hospital for medical attention. The Medal of Military Valor is the posthumous decoration given to the 39 brave soldiers who died in the middle of the desert for their country.
Nous vous décernons la médaille de la vaillance.
In an elegy to the 39 fallen soldiers, Commander of the 41st Rapid Motorist Brigade recounts the circumstances under which each of the soldiers died.
Le poste d'Achigache, qui se trouve dans l'arrondissement de Mozogo.
The soldiers, Kweche says, did not sacrifice their lives in vain. That Cameroon is proud of them and may their souls rest in peace.
Récolté pour son effronterie au cours de toutes ces actions conventionnelles.
The 39 soldiers were defending Cameroon in 3 different operations. The Operation Alpha and the Operation Emergence, where 38 of the soldiers died fighting against Boko Haram in the Greater North region of Cameroon, and the UN mission in the Central African Republic, where one of the soldiers died. And the battle continues. At the end of the ceremony, the Minister of Defense, Alain Edgar Mebengo, presented to the different families of the fallen soldiers President Biya's message of condolence.
Aux familles de ces soldats, à leurs amis, à leurs proches, les sincères condoléances du président de la République.
Each family of the fallen soldier was to designate 2 persons as of right to meet with the Minister of Defense, surely for government support for the funeral of the 39 fallen soldiers.
And definitely may their souls rest in peace. You should remember the latest incident in the far north region of Cameroon, a mine explosion that killed soldiers, and one of them, the late Captain Mbene Elvis Matute, the father of the late captain, granted an exclusive interview to Equinox Television. He recounts to our reporter, Davison Maimo, the last conversation he had with his son. Let's listen to the following excerpt.
All I know is that I spoke to my child on that fateful day at 9 o'clock in the morning. And at 5 minutes to 11, or 5 minutes to 1, that same day, I was called up by a certain commissioner of police who informed me of the death of my son. I was taken aback because it wasn't quite 3-4 hours that I spoke to him. And what was my conversation with him? I had previously called him on the 8th, and he did not pick up his phone. So on the 9th in the morning at 9 o'clock, he called for me, and I asked him why he did not pick up the phone. He said they were in the bush. They slept in the bush the whole night. My immediate reaction to what he said was that, look, you people have to be very careful, these Boko Haram people. Let them not take you by surprise. And his response was, Papa, why do you look at it that way? Why don't you think that we can also take the Boko Haram by surprise? And all I said to him was, well, since you have said so, take courage. And then that was my last word with him. He has been going very smoothly along the line. He's done a lot of courses, and he just came back from the last course that he did and graduated on the 30th of January. He was very proud of the certificate he has just had, which is the certificate d'etat major, and that's the last certificate he
Chief Matute recounting the last minute and last conversation he had with his son, Captain Matute Elvis Mbene, who died after a mine explosion in the far north region of Cameroon. And Gaska Pauline, the lone female colonel and army inspector, stole the show Thursday in the nation's capital, Yaoundé, during the installation ceremony of newly appointed officials in the Ministry of Defense. The now army inspector says the reason behind her success is hard work and obedience, installing the various heads of units. Edgar Aleng Mebengo, Minister of Defense, enjoined them to reinforce efforts towards winning the war against Boko Haram, which at the moment is primordial for the coalition forces in the far north region of Cameroon. Efficiency of personnel is one of the major reasons for the mass exodus into the Inspectorate General at the Ministry of Defense in Yaoundé. And at least 45 people have been killed by suspected Boko Haram militants in a village found in the Borno State, northeastern Nigeria. Witnesses say the Boko Haram gunmen stormed the area, targeting boys and men before setting the entire village ablaze. The attack happened on Tuesday, but it was not reported immediately because of the remoteness of the area. The total number of deaths remains unclear. Jaba is about 100 kilometers away from the town of Maiduguri. And two opposition political parties in Cameroon have added their voices to several others to denounce the scandal witnessed at the International Relations Institute of Cameroon, IRIC. The Social Democratic Front Party, through its press relations officer Jean-Robert Wafo, has called for social justice to reign and that the 5 candidates whose names disappeared in the 15 lists in the Department of Diplomacy should be reinstated and main actors involved in the process sanctioned. The Cameroon Renaissance movement of Professor Maurice Kamto is calling on the perpetrators to resign. Barrister Fidel Jumesi says heads have to roll and that meritocracy should be given its place. We now talk something else. Workers of a sugar company in Betua have resumed duty after waiting for concrete solutions to be provided to their plight. The workers went on strike, blocking the Betua-Baturi highway hours, and they are demanding payment of about 30 months of salary arrears. Jacques Kwekingete tells us more.
There were close to 100 workers of the Justin Sugar Mill in the East region who took to the streets, blocking the road between Betua to Baturi with the aid of a car and a tractor, carrying their placards displaying messages of their revendications. The action by these angry workers had to seriously paralyze traffic, as no vehicle could leave Betua to Baturi or vice versa. In no time, therefore, the striking workers were engulfed by passengers who had no option but to wait for a solution to be arrived at. Even the presence of the CPDM parliamentarian for Lom and Joren, Bambia Antoinette, could not help the situation despite her long negotiations. Amongst the different revendications being brandished on the placards, The workers of the sugar manufacturing company were also demanding 30 to 36 months unpaid salaries. Another worry was about their future, as the company was recently bought over by a Moroccan company. Travelers who had lost patience had no options but to sit on the ground while hoping for something to be done. Informed of the situation, the senior divisional officer for Kadei, Emmanuel Alpha, accompanied by the forces of law and order, descended on the ground to restore order. Firstly, the roads were cleared off the barricade with the help of the travelers, which finally made circulation fluid again. The SDO called on the workers to respect the law while staging a strike action, especially as they blocked major roads. He promised holding a meeting with the angry workers to seek lasting solutions to their problems.
The purchase of Women's Day fabric in Betua seems to have no affluence 48 hours to the celebration of the 30th edition of the International Day dedicated for the woman. Tellers are complaining of timid purchase. Jackie Kwekinge once more.
Tellers at the Betua Central Market are still making last-minute adjustments on the Women's Day outfit barely 48 hours to the celebration, while hoping that the market situation will change. At this corner of the market, no other material can be spotted apart from the Women's Day fabric. The clock is ticking fast, so they have to make haste despite the low affluence from customers. This seamstress says things are not the same as before. Times have changed. Women are no longer in a mad rush for the outfit, even 2 days to the event. The market seems to witness no affluence. Report says, contrary to last year, this year Women's Day fabric were being delivered even in the hinterlands in the East region, thereby reducing the usual commotion that usually characterized the eve of the Women's Day celebration, with women coming from the suburbs to pick up an outfit even a day before. The gender approach has also made the men to get involved in the preparation of the International Women's Day, as this man tells us he came to pick up the Women's Day fabric of his wife. Everything being equal, the women folk of the East region will obviously be joining their counterparts nationwide to celebrate the 30th edition of the International Women's Day come Sunday, the 8th of March 2015.
News, we shall be having a woman who has been serving prisoners for over 20 years now. We talk sports football. The Under-20 African Football Championship opens this Sunday in Senegal, with host country playing against Nigeria. That same Sunday, 8th of March, Congo locks horns with Cote d'Ivoire. And on Monday, March 9, Ghana takes on South Africa, while Mali clashes with Zambia. The Under-20 AFCON started in Egypt in 1991. The Pharaohs of Egypt won the first edition, but it is Nigeria who have won the competition 6 times, Egypt 4, and of course Ghana 3 times. That takes us to the second segment of this news. In the second part of this news, we end our series of guests were dedicated to women as far as the 6 p.m. primetime newscast is concerned. And in barely 48 hours will be the 30th edition of the International Day dedicated for the woman. Today we are receiving Sister Jacqueline Atabong. She is the coordinator of the Victim Offender Prisons Case Support in Cameroon. Good evening, Sister, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good evening.
You have been working with prisoners for over 20 years now. How has it been?
Oh, it's been challenging, but for me also very interesting, because I like working with them, and I think it's an area which has often been neglected by many people, which has lots of needs, and I find that, giving a little bit of help, brings a lot of change in many people's lives, and that's why I like to continue to work there.
In one of your outing, you always say the government and the church has abandoned prisons or neglected prisons in Cameroon.
Yes, I say that the government and the church have abandoned prisons, and I think the church has heard that and they're taking it up seriously. I say this often because taking, for example, all the different fields of interest of the government, like health, education, you don't find that prison is at the same level. Even when you talk about the justice system, prisons are at the bottommost part of it. You have the courts, you have the magistrates, the judges, even the way they treat the prison penitentiary staff, it's not the same way that they treat other members of the judiciary chain.
Okay.
And when it comes to the church also, that has been said, and I think that has also been heard, because the Pope at this time talks a lot about working with the poor, working with prisoners, and many bishops have taken interest in working with the poor and with prisoners, and many have also invited me to train in their dioceses, their Justice and Peace Commission, so that they could also work in their prisons. So I think the church has heard. I hope the government will hear too.
Now, when we talk of victim offender prison care support, what is it all about? What are your activities?
Yes, from its name, Victim Offender Prison Care Support, it explains itself in the sense that we work with victims of crime. We work with perpetrators of crime, that is offenders, and we give them support that will help them to reintegrate into the society and become better persons. Because you know, when crime is committed, the victim gets hurt, and some victims may get trapped in and they cannot move on with their life. A woman whose child is killed may get trapped in anger. A child who is raped may get trapped in a frustration and low self-esteem. And if you don't accompany them to become to get over this stage in their life, they may become trapped and they will never move forward in their life. So too with offenders. Many offenders have had problems in their early childhood. They are lots of them are from broken families or abandoned by family, or children who are orphans, a lot of them. And when they have been abandoned by their family, then they eventually get involved with crime. And when they get involved with crime, if you don't help them, then they will never be able to become good citizens. So the activities which we carry out are activities that are holistic, that if you listen to somebody and listen to what their difficulties are, and we take from what they say what problems they have, and we try to help them. Therefore, our activities range from health care, for instance, in prisons, health care of prisoners. We have socio-economic activities. A lot of them have no relationships with their families, and they're not able to live in community because lots of them have grown on the streets, and they use the jungle law that the strongest wins, and therefore when they live with others, they think you must fight before you can get something. We try to help them to build good social relationships. We give them socioeconomic skills, like how to learn to do a trade that could help them to earn a living. Like
trying to rehabilitate them?
Yes, they learn how to sew, they learn how to use the computer and repair the computers. And we're even in partnership with like Collège de la Salle, which gives them a valid certificate and helps them to find jobs. They have hairdressing salon, they do jewelry. We also have many other activities. We have a bakery where prisoners learn how to make bread and they sell it, and a lot of them are employed there and have found jobs in other places.
Now, how do you do all that in Cameroon? How do you, do you go to almost every prison in Cameroon?
I work particularly in the Douala Central Prison, but I started working with others in different prisons. Like I've trained prison pastoral staff or justice and peace staff in Bafoussam, Nkongsamba, Mbanga, Manfei. I'm just actually coming back from one of the trainings that we had in Obala, the Diocese of Obala. So we are training the prison pastoral staff there so that they too can do the same thing in their own prisons.
Now, as a woman, how do you go about all this? You have been working with prison and prisoners for over 20 years now. We're in the context of celebrating Women's Day. As a woman, how did you begin this initiative?
Well, I don't know whether I began it as a woman or the maternal instincts are also put in it. But I think I'm a nun, I'm a lady, I'm a woman. I've grown in the church, and in the scriptures, in my life, I have always wanted to work with the poor, to help people. I like to help people to realize themselves and make the best of themselves, to realize the potentials that they have and make the best of what they have. And I saw that this group of persons were neglected. Their potentials, and they are very gifted people. because if you have to steal, you have to be very calculated. A lot of them have very high potentials, but they have not been helped. So as a woman, I felt that, you know, I could help them to discover what they have in themselves, which they have not been able to bring out, or which they have distorted. And I think using my maternal skills, especially, you know, in the prison you have there are 3,200 or 3,500 prisoners in the Douala Central Prison.
You find courage to go there, because
yes.
we are in prison is very, you know, a hostile environment.
When you are from outside, you think it's a hostile environment, but when you go in close to them, you see that those boys who are there in the prison, they also have a face, they have a name, they like to be loved, they like to be understood. And once you go to them as a friend, as a mother, then you'll find out that they are not as bad as you think. We have a lot of prejudices, which, you know, crime has put into our minds, because when crime sometimes is so horrifying that it puts a lot of prejudices. But when you start talking with them, and you discover that sometimes they did it out of some frustration, or they did it because they did not know that why they were doing it. And sometimes when you can bring them back to themselves, when you can bring them back to see that what they did was wrong, it's so wonderful. When I meet a Grand Bandi, as we call them, and you see him now, he has moved on after his life in prison, and he has left stealing and he's trying to work. It is such a wonderful thing to do. And I think that a lot of my maternal skills and has been helpful to the male prisoners, and as well as the female prisoners, because I also stand up like an example to them. I'm a friend, I'm a sister, I'm a mother, and I can listen to them. I can find out what is happening to their children. I can talk to them.
Are they responding? Are they responding to maybe?
Yes, a lot of them are responding. I think the prison, if you go to the prison now, as compared to when I started about in 2003, there's no comparison. The prison is still very bad, but a lot of things have changed in the prison. You see, you go to the prison now, you come and meet them in the computer center, they are all working. They're studying, they're preparing for their exams, and a lot of them have even got the certificate and gotten jobs after that, and that has helped others. They make beautiful bags, beautiful handbags, and they sell it and make money for themselves. So a lot of them are changing, even their mindset. A lot of them work in our bakeries. But there's just something that is a bit sad, that when they get these opportunities, and some of them have learned and gotten the skills, then the society doesn't want them back and doesn't want to give them jobs. Now,
where do you get your funds from, just to come out of this interview, and solutions to some of these rights being violated, rights of prisoners being violated?
Well, a lot of the funds we get are from foreign donors and church donors especially, and while a little of it comes from the Cameroon community, we make appeals to different groups, and sometimes especially church groups, and some sensitive individuals help, because a lot of people don't want to hear about prisons, so they don't want to help. Now, solutions? One of the things I would suggest to the community is to accept people who are making an effort to change their life. Okay. We have one boy who has just finished. He has his a certificate. He can repair computers. He has been employed in one company. And when he was employed and he was given his badge and everything to start working, then they discovered that he had been in prison, and then they stopped him from work. I was very sad. It's not because he couldn't do the job, and he has moved away from crime. He now has a competence he wants to implement, and then the society say, no, we are not going to give you a job because you have been in prison. I'm still following up on that case, and I want to appeal to the community that when people are making an effort to move on in their lives, that we should be ready to welcome them and to give them opportunities to keep away from crime. Thank you very much, Sister Jacqueline Atabong. You are the coordinator of the Victim Offender Prison Care Support. Yes, thank you. And thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us, equally televiewers, in this last edition for the week of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinox Television. Good night.